Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show. So, today I got a pretty interesting topic for you guys, and the topic is why Paul George may cost these Clippers this title if he doesn't start playing well. So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. Now, before I get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content so you don't miss anything. And also be sure to check out the show on the Dreamerspro Podcast, which is on Spotify, and we're going to have the link in the description below. So first of all, let me just say this. Let me just adjust this camera a little bit. So first of all, let me tell you guys where we've been. We haven't posted some videos in quite some time. That's because we've had some personal issues. Marco had a health issue that he was taking care of, so he's been down. So he's not been feeling well, but he's feeling much better now. So we use that time to just, allow him to focus on his health, because that's the most important thing. And we knew that we would get back to you guys as soon as we could, and here we are today. So that's the reason for the brief hiatus that we've been away, and we haven't been able to produce content. Now, a lot of things have happened since then. I know some of you guys are pretty interested to see my thoughts and opinions on some of the things that have happened around the NBA playoffs, but most importantly, what's been happening with the Clippers in the first round. And in today's video, I'm going to be covering what happened in Game 4, because I watched the game yesterday afternoon or evening, whatever it is. So I watched the game, and I have all of my points that I'm going to get to, and I'm going to address some other things that people have been saying. So I'm just going to get into all that. So first of all, for those of you who didn't see the game, first thing I noticed was Kristaps Porzingis was out because of a knee injury, so he didn't play. Now, funny enough, Luka Doncic, who had sprained his ankle or so, twisted his ankle in Game 3, I was surprised to see him out there. He looked a little bit ginger in the beginning of the game, but he was playing. In the beginning, in the first quarter, Kawhi looked sharp in the first few minutes. He had about 5 points in the first quarter. And Paul George looked like he was getting off to a good start, and he ended up having 7 points in that first quarter. So I thought that he had sort of, finally got into his mojo, got his rhythm back. But as you all know, that didn't happen, which I'm going to get to. I'm going to get to Paul George in this video a little bit later. So the Clippers, offensively, they looked pretty good. They scored 30-plus points in that first quarter. And Reggie Jackson got hot. He was coming off the bench in the first quarter, and he got them about 8 points in the first quarter. So he was playing well. Now, if we look at Kawhi Leonard, these playoffs, Kawhi has been pretty much what I expected him to be. If you look at his regular season averages, the guy averaged 27 points a game, 7.1 rebounds, 4.9 assists. And in typical Kawhi Leonard fashion, everything went up. In the playoffs, he's averaging more minutes, playing 41 minutes a game. He's shooting 50% from the field, which is what I expected, because that's generally what he shoots from the field in the playoffs. He's averaging 33 points a game in the playoffs. His three-point percentage is down, but it's starting to go up. It's at 27%. I expect that number to go up as the playoffs continue. Shooting 92.5% from the free throw line, which is exceptional. He's getting you 10 rebounds a game and 5 assists. So the dude is averaging a double-double, 33 and 10. And he's also getting you two steals a game. So Kawhi Leonard has looked like Kawhi when the restart happened, when the NBA games restarted. He didn't look so sharp in the first few games, which I touched on, which was a bit concerning to me. He didn't look as quick, sharp, athletic. He didn't look as decisive as he wanted to be on offense, but he's turned that around and he looks fantastic, like playoff Kawhi. Nothing out of the usual. Exactly what I expect from him, which is just excellence. So the Clippers ended up closing that first quarter 34-24, and the Mavs were down 10 points. And the Clippers bench picked it up in the second quarter, and Zubac was playing solid. He'd been playing solid pretty much all season long. And if I look at the box score to see how many points Zubac had in the game, Zubac had 15 points, although he didn't have as many rebounds as I've liked that he usually gets, but he's been solid all series long. John Michael Green came off the bench with Lou Williams, and they gave him a punch. And Lou Williams was, I've had some doubts about him in the past, but he came up pretty big last night for them with his bench scoring. And I think he scored 36 points coming off the bench, so he was sensational. But at that point in the game, in the second quarter, they were up 49-31. And when I was watching that game, it got to a point where I was looking at the Clippers play, And it looked like they were just going into the motions because they saw that they got a big lead and they started to take their foot off the gas. And they seemed to be a little bit disinterested. And boy, would that come back to bite them later on in the game. And it sure did. Then the Mavs started hitting some shots and started chipping away at that 21-point lead. And Luka only had 5 points. Think about it, midway through the second quarter. And I was beginning to wonder, was his ankle bothering him? But as you can see, all of that pretty much changed. And some of the questions I was asking myself was, were the Clippers up because of the lack of Kristaps Porzingis not playing, or was it their defense? I wasn't sure about that. So looking at the Mavs side, Trey Burke had 11 points coming off the bench up until that point. But PG and Kawhi Leonard were a bit quiet offensively in the first half. Then Luka started to heat up in the second quarter. And towards the end of the second quarter, he ended up having like 12.7 rebounds, 7 assists, and playing his usual all-around game. But what ended up happening was the Clippers stopped making shots, and they started playing bad defense. And before you know it, the score going into half was 58-66, and they had a 21-point lead. And then in the second half, that's when things started to go downhill for the Clippers. And this is where I want to focus on Paul George. I have to admit something to you guys, okay? Going into the playoffs, I thought that Paul George was going to be an all-star, okay? If you look at his regular season averages, if I pull up Paul George's numbers here, in the regular season, Paul George averaged 21.5 points a game, 5.7 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. And I knew that Paul George could play better because the following season, the season before, he averaged 28 points a game. And he was one of the top 3 in MVP voting. So I knew Paul George could play very well. When the bubble started, Paul George was averaging 25.5 points a game and shooting 50% from the three-point line. 50%. So conventional wisdom would tell me, and maybe some of you people out there, that PG was just going to continue because they're playing in the same venue. He played very well all the way up until the end of the 8 games. And then one would think the next game in the same arena, he would be able to duplicate that. But what's happened? In 4 games, playing 38 minutes a game, Paul George is averaging 15.3 points a game, shooting 29% from the field, 22% from the three-point line. Granted, he's shooting 100% from the free throw line. Good for him. Getting you 7.3 rebounds and 3.8 assists and 1.3 steals. But Paul George, I've never seen something like this happen to a player where it looks like Paul George has forgotten how to play basketball. I've never seen something like this. Going into this series, I picked the Clippers to win in 5. But if you, and that's including Kristaps Porzingis being healthy. But if you told me that Paul George was going to be averaging about 15 points a game, I'd say we're in trouble. I would say it would be pretty hard for the Clippers to win that series because essentially he's been relegated to a bench player or a role player. And Paul George is the reason I believe Clippers are having a lot of their issues. He's not the only reason, but he's a major reason. And if you watch that game, he was passive. And I think that the fact that he's been missing shots has really affected him psychologically. You could see it. You could see it in the way he was playing. Paul George was running away from the basket, from the ball. He didn't want to shoot. He would attack and kick. He would attack and kick. It got to the point where he became so tentative that he even started missing shots around the rim. So Paul George has been a disaster. And it's something I've never seen before at all. Like, in all these years of watching basketball, I've never seen a player take this much of a fall in his game. So Paul George, and he knows it, because in the end of the game he said, listen, we all know what the problem is. I'm not shooting well. I'm not playing well. And if I was scoring, like, damn, I almost cursed. If I was scoring at least 20 points a game, the series would be different. But he's not doing that. And I think Paul George, if the Clippers were to lose this series, I'm going to put all the blame at his feet. because it is inexcusable for a player worth, with $100 million plus contract to be performing like this and really, really hurting his team. So Paul George, he's been a disaster for the Clippers thus far. Not to say that he's going to be like this for the rest of the series, rest of the season. I don't think so. I'm not saying that I believe that the Clippers are going to lose this series. I'm certainly not saying that, because I still think that they can win the series. And if you watched most of the first half in that game, you'd have thought the same thing. So I'm not saying that the Clippers are going to lose. I predicted for them to win the series in 5. It may go 6. It may go 7. But I still think that they're going to win. And no one is 100% right about their picks. Hell, Charles Barkley thought the Portland Trailblazers were going to sweep the Lakers. So he's still on TV. He's still making his money. So even if the Clippers lose, I would be wrong. Yes, I'd come out and say that. But it doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. I shouldn't be talking basketball. Yes. So let me get to these people in the comment section before I finish off my commentary here. Oh, actually, let me finish off the highlights, and then I'll get to that. So in the fourth quarter, by the fourth quarter, Luka Doncic already had 27 points, and now the Clippers were playing basically behind. And the Clippers in the fourth looked like they were in a daze. They looked like they didn't even understand what was happening on the court, which was bad. Now, Lou Williams, to his credit, kept the Clippers in the game. And midway through the fourth quarter is when Kawhi Leonard started to sort of turn it on. And that's when he started scoring. And PG was nowhere to be found while all of this was happening. But Kawhi Leonard seemed to be thrown off by the double teams that the Mavs were throwing at him. But I think towards the latter points in that fourth quarter, he was able to understand how to play out of it. And Reggie Jackson had probably the play of the game up until that point where he saved the ball going out of bounds, then whipped up an outlet pass to Kawhi Leonard, who hit the three to pull the game, I think, within 3 points, to bring the game to 119, 117. So that was a huge play. And you could see Kawhi started playing some great defense on Luka. And Luka, the only way Luka could score, because he couldn't score on Kawhi Leonard one-on-one, and even Jeff Van Gundy said, if that's the Mavs' recipe for how they think that they're going to generate points, it's not going to work. And he couldn't score on Kawhi. So the only way Luka could score that ball was to get a switch on the point guard of Reggie Jackson. He could not score on Kawhi Leonard. And you saw that at the times he tried to score Kawhi, he just couldn't. Kawhi Leonard is one of the best perimeter defensive players in the history of basketball. And if you're watching that game, Luka could not score on Kawhi. And even the game-winning shot that he hit, to his credit, was on Reggie Jackson and wasn't on Kawhi. Not to say that he couldn't do that to Kawhi, but he didn't. And I didn't see him do that. So they tried their hardest to get Kawhi off of him with that pick and roll and the switch, which they were able to do. But Kawhi Leonard showed up in a major way. As always, it's just that they couldn't win the game. He couldn't hit the shot to take them over the top to close it out. But I don't think anyone watching that game who saw Kawhi Leonard miss that shot in their minds would have said, oh, this dude is trash. I mean, if you think that, then you have some bigger issues. So they lost the game. Luka Doncic hit an amazing three-point shot, pretty much from like 28 feet out. And kudos go to them, to the Mavericks for hitting that shot and winning that game. Now, do I think that the Mavs are going to win this series? No. I'm not one of those people that just changes their picks as the wind blows. I said that the Clippers are going to win this series in the beginning of the series, and I'm still sticking to my pick. If they no longer can win in 5, can they still win in 6? Absolutely. Can they win in 7? Absolutely. That's what I think. I'm not going to start changing my pick, and that's what I think. However, what I did not foresee was Paul George playing this bad. Now, I think Paul George can turn it around because he's an amazing offensive player. I think he has everything that it takes to turn it around, and he said he's going to, in the next game that they play, he's going to start off the game attacking the basket, starting his offense early from the post and then working his way out. So I think that they still have a chance to do well. I just think that Paul George needs to play better. But to be quite honest with you, even though Paul George only had 7 points, I think, in that first half, the Clippers were still leading that game pretty well, and they just took their foot off the gas pedal. Now, he finished the game with 9 points, so Paul George essentially scored 2 points in the second half, but with the 7 points in the first half, they were still leading. So I still think the Clippers can win this series in spite of Paul George, but it would make it a lot easier if Paul George plays well. That's just my opinion. So what I want to know from you guys is, let me know what you guys think on Paul George. I'm sure a lot of you guys have a lot to say on that. Now, let me address some of these people in the comment section. So I'm pretty much new to this, media world. And apparently, I was unaware, right? I had to ask some people about this because I was surprised. So apparently, there are people in the world that subscribe to people's channels, not because they necessarily like that person, not necessarily because they even want to see that person do good. What they do is they sit there and wait for something to go wrong or for that person to have a prediction, and they come out of the weeds and they start making their comments. And I got to hand it to you guys, man. I didn't even know you existed, to be honest with you. I didn't know that some of you guys, I don't even remember some of your names. There's even one dude looking for me on the internet. He's like, "Oh my God, thank God I found this channel so I can, so I can start letting them know what I think if the Clippers lose." So let me just say this: if it makes you guys feel good that the Clippers did bad and you can come out and now start making your comments, fantastic, man. More kudos to you. If it's making you feel better, if it's added something to your life, I'm happy for you. By all means, continue. If you have any comments that you want to leave, any hate that you want to leave, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I appreciate it because you add more engagement and you give us more views. So if it makes you feel if it makes you feel good about yourself and your life, fantastic, man. I just didn't know that you guys existed. Now, apart from the stuff that I said about Nick Wright, I think Nick Wright doesn't know what the hell he's talking about with basketball most of the time. So I don't change my opinion on that. If you believe that Nick Wright is right when he says that LeBron is a better basketball player than Michael Jordan, then that's on you, man. But I don't believe that. So for these dudes out there that's coming in the comment sections, but hey, man, I didn't even know you guys existed, man, up until now. So apparently we got some people that subscribe to people's channels just to hate. Now, all I'm saying is you don't have to agree with me. I'm not saying you agree with me, but for your own sake, just to be consistent with yourself, if you're going to have something to say about somebody when something goes wrong, have something to say when something goes right too. And I never see you guys when stuff goes right. So it just let me know that you guys, you have a role that you play on social media, and kudos to you. Thank you so much for your engagement, and I look forward to your comments on this video and as the NBA playoffs continue on. So once again, I want to thank you guys for your attention, and to the haters, thank you guys especially more because you guys give us a lot of engagement. So keep it going. Don't forget to hit the dislike button too, because to make your work complete on these videos. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. We are back. We're going to be posting more content, so be on the lookout for that. And I'm not changing my pick on the Clippers because I still think they're going to win. I just think Paul George needs to play better. So catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.